answers reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About on GB News with me, Alex Phillips. As the world watches the start of war once again in Europe, we will bring you the latest on the invasion of Ukraine. I'm joined today by Nigel Nelson, political editor of the Sunday Mirror. Coming up, a massive package of sanctions to hobble the Russian economy. The UK's response to the invasion of Ukraine as G7 leaders meet virtually to discuss a conjoined response. But can anything now be done to stop Putin's warmongering? And cyber attacks, the new weapons of aggression and disinformation. We have an expert explaining how digital warfare is being used against Ukraine and how similar strategies could be turned against the UK in reprisals. That's what we're talking about for the next hour, but what do you need to talk about? Email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet the channel @GBNews. First of all, it's time for the GB News headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 2 minutes past 2. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB Newsroom. The Prime Minister says the UK and its allies will respond to Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine with a massive package of sanctions. Boris Johnson's pledged to do everything he can to keep Britain safe, adding that Moscow's actions must end in failure. Russian military vehicles marked with the letter Z have already entered Ukraine, with police saying there have been just over 200 Russian attacks so far today. New images just in this afternoon show rescue workers at the crash site of the Ukrainian Armed Forces aircraft. Earlier today, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan was the latest world leader to meet with President Putin. Mr. Johnson says the UK won't turn a blind eye to the attacks.
We and the world cannot allow that freedom just to be snuffed out. We cannot and will not just look away. Today, in concert with our allies, we will agree a massive package of economic sanctions designed in time to hobble the Russian economy. Our mission is clear. Diplomatically, politically, economically, and eventually militarily, this hideous and barbaric venture of Vladimir Putin must end in failure.
Boris Johnson speaking earlier. Meanwhile, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the EU's united in responding against the Kremlin's actions.
What is at stake is the stability of Europe and the whole international order, our peace order. President Putin chose to bring war back to Europe.
Ursula von der Leyen speaking in Brussels earlier, as did NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg. He said the Kremlin's intentions are clear for the world to see.
Russia has attacked Ukraine. This is a brutal act of war. Peace on our continent has been shattered. We now have war in Europe on a scale and of a type we thought belonged to history.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged citizens to become blood donors in hospitals for wounded soldiers.
The Ukrainian armed forces were involved in heavy fighting, repelling attacks in Donbass and other regions, east, north, south. The enemy sustained serious losses, and the enemy will sustain many more losses. They came on our land. We're already handing out weapons, and we'll hand out them to defend our country to everyone who wants and has the capacity to defend our sovereignty. The future of Ukraine depends on every citizen.
In other news, all remaining COVID restrictions in England end today. That means people who test positive with the virus will no longer legally have to isolate. It follows the Prime Minister's Living with COVID strategy, which also includes scrapping universal testing from April. The Queen has cancelled more planned virtual engagements today following her COVID diagnosis last week. That's been confirmed by Buckingham Palace. It follows other cancelled virtual meetings at the start of the week, with the monarch still suffering with mild cold-like symptoms. The palace says Her Majesty will continue with light duties. Students starting university in September will now have to start paying back their loans as soon as they earn more than £25,000 a year. That's part of the government's response into the Augar Review, which looks into funding within higher education. The current threshold for repaying student loans is just over £27,000. The UK has pledged £160 million to speed up the development of vaccines against deadly diseases. The funding will go towards preparing for future epidemics, with an aim to slash the time it takes to make a vaccine to 100 days. That's a third of the time it took to develop the first COVID jab. It will also help with developing further vaccines to protect against future COVID-19 strains. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens, including the latest on Ukraine. Now, back to Alex and We Need to Talk About.
It is a day few predicted and fewer still would wish for. War once again stalks Europe. Missiles have been raining down across Ukraine, over 1,000 miles away, yet the threat to an entire continent was made clear. Consequences greater than any of you have faced in history, warned the Russian president to anyone standing in his way. I hope I have been heard. Having elicited probable reactions from every major world leader in response to invasion and paraded his powerful payloads on the very day heads of state met in Munich to discuss global security, Vladimir Putin has determined that he is unstoppable. The United States, together with our allies and partners, will respond decisively and impose swift and severe costs on Russia. The warning from America following a phone call between Presidents Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin 2 weeks ago. With the UN Security Council, the G7 and NATO all planning emergency meetings, we wait to see what, if anything, can be done to stop Russia without precipitating a continental crisis, the likes of which have not been seen since the Second World War. Well, let's talk now to our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, who is at Downing Street. Tom, the Prime Minister has announced a package of sanctions, in his words, to hobble the Russian economy. But surely Putin has just priced those in.
Well, that is certainly a valid analysis. It's hard to think that if sanctions were much harsher on Tuesday, back when that first tranche was announced, that Putin would have rowed back from what he has clearly been planning for a long time. There's clearly very little that the West could have done to prevent this circumstance rolling forwards. However, the West is very keen to present a united front here. It has been working closely together, whether it's Washington, London or Brussels, for the last few weeks. Clearly that first tranche of sanctions was a highly coordinated effort, and similarly we're not hearing the full details of what's happening until the Prime Minister addresses Parliament at 5 p.m. today, after of course his call with G7 leaders, but also after time for UK security officials to speak with their counterparts in America and in Europe. This is a time when certainly Number 10 feels the West has to be resolute and united and speak with the loudest, clearest voice possible together to have the most impact.
In his address to the nation earlier, Boris Johnson said that diplomatically, politically, economically, and eventually militarily, this hideous and barbaric venture of Vladimir Putin must end in failure. He hasn't yet made clear what he means by militarily, but there are some calling for that approach.
There certainly are. David Davis, a prominent backbencher, former Brexit minister, of course, has called for a no-fly zone if the Ukrainians request it to be established. That would be British planes flying over Ukrainian airspace. It has to be said that is not something that Number 10 is countenancing right now, although extra planes have been diverted to patrol the airspace of both Poland and Romania, two countries that border Ukraine. So that's British aeroplanes in the sky bordering Ukraine, just not over Ukraine. It has to be said that the Prime Minister's spokesman just less than an hour ago was asked for clarification on the comments as to what it means by military defeat, and the Prime Minister's spokesman was clear that that did not mean British boots on the ground. It meant British defensive weaponry being supplied to the Ukrainians. As we know, anti-tank missiles have been supplied, and further weaponry is being supplied to the Ukrainian military, as well as defensive equipment. But also it means that the UK is expecting this not to be a quick lightning war, this to be a protracted struggle whereby the British view seems to be that the Russians have fundamentally underestimated the will of the Ukrainian people to fight.
Tom, thank you. Well, we can now cross live to southeastern Ukraine, to Milcha Babu, who has been there, very much the focus of the assault so far. Milcha, what's the latest?
Well, it's been a tense morning here in eastern Ukraine, in the city of Mariupol, where shelling started around 5:20 in the morning and continued throughout the morning. People are queuing up at ATMs, at banks, retrying whatever safe groceries and hygiene products for at least a couple days, if not a week. So there's been a lot of panic and a lot of shock amidst civilian population because of what happened last night throughout Ukraine. I spoke with a number of people this morning, and they were telling me they could not believe their eyes what they're seeing. And keep in mind, this is a pro-Russian city. This 80-90% of people living here do agree more or less with Moscow's politics towards Ukraine, but that doesn't mean they're in favor of war, including people that I spoke with that are pro-Russian and openly speak about that. They say war is bad and it can bring nothing good to the city of Mariupol and to eastern Ukraine in general. They would like to see some sort of agreement or a resolution done in a political, diplomatic way, rather than have losses of life on both sides of the barricades. The city that I'm in, Mariupol, is still under Ukrainian control, but that can be changed at any time, and we're heading into a very difficult night here in eastern Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard Russian official accounts saying that they are only attacking military bases, but there have been other unconfirmed reports that civilians have lost their lives in this onslaught. What sort of intelligence have you got where you are?
Well, as of now, in the city that I am in, Mariupol, we have not witnessed civilian casualties, but that doesn't mean they could not happen throughout the evening, throughout the afternoon. These attacks that Putin calls them surgical attacks and precise attacks, as we know, civilian population. There's not a clear separation between military bases and civilian buildings in some parts of Mariupol. For instance, some of the places that are strategically placed, such as the local governor's house, is obviously on a street where other civilians live. So no matter how precise you are with these attacks, I think there's a high risk that we will see casualties, civilian casualties, not just here in Mariupol in eastern Ukraine, but throughout Ukraine in the next couple days or following days, which is obviously a very sad and disturbing news.
Yeah, it is indeed. Milcha, do stay safe, and we'll catch up with you again very soon, I am sure. Milcha Babu there, reporting from southeastern Ukraine. Well, let's talk to Colonel Richard Kemp, former British military commander and chairman of the Cobra Intelligence Group. Fantastic to have you on the programme, Richard. What do you think are going to be Putin's next moves? People for a long time were saying, well, this is power projection. Surely he hasn't got the audacity to try and take all of Ukraine. But it very much looks that way today.
Well, his offensive seems to have been on a very wide basis, with attack coming from north and south and also east. And he has said his intention is to demilitarize Ukraine, which of course means to destroy the Ukrainian army and also to bring down the government of Ukraine. So that's what he will, I think, aim to do in the first instance. Whether or not, having achieved that, if he does, and of course it's not foregone that he will, but if he does, then he might decide to remain in occupation of Ukraine in the longer term, which will be extremely costly for him financially and in terms of Russian deaths. Or he might decide to withdraw and leave some kind of puppet regime in charge in Ukraine. I think we'll have to see how events develop. It's very early days yet.
A lot of discussion over the last few weeks has surrounded the fact that Ukraine is not a NATO member, but there are some calling for some sort of military intervention from the West, people like David Davis in the UK Parliament. Is that even plausible? What is it that NATO members can do to help protect Ukraine?
I don't think there is, even in the face of this aggression, there's any will among any NATO countries to carry out military intervention, direct intervention in Ukraine. Britain and other NATO countries have provided military equipment, including anti-tank missiles and training to the Ukrainian army. And I think now we need to increase that. We should have done more before, but now is the time to really step that up, supplying Ukraine with any military equipment and weaponry that it needs. In order to do that, with the Russian presence in the country, we will need to establish an air corridor over Ukraine to deliver essential military equipment. And on top of that, of course, we need to provide Ukraine with whatever financial support it needs, because one of Putin's objectives now is to destroy the Ukrainian economy.
Colonel Richard Kemp, thank you ever so much for giving us your insight on this pretty dark day for Europe. Let's speak to my studio guest today, Nigel Nelson, who's political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People. It seems to me we're talking sanctions. We've got this robust packet of sanctions that's supposed to hobble the economy. But it seems to me that Putin's been pricing that in for the past decade, and it's frankly not really going to have much effect.
Well, I think it'll have an effect, but it'll be a long-term effect. So you're absolutely right that Putin doesn't care about the sanctions. He'd clearly planned to go into Ukraine. Maybe he's been planning it for years. We don't know. And he's certainly been lying about it. We actually know that. But sanctions do have a long-term effect, which is more important. I mean, there are a variety of things we can do that would cripple the Russian economy. You remove their banks from the international banking system by taking out of the SWIFT payments. You stop them actually selling sovereign debt in the City of London and other financial markets. Over a period of months, that'll really affect the Russian people. And the one hope then is that they're the ones who will oppose all this. So I think that you've got Vladimir Putin's future on the line too.
Yeah, I mean, the Prime Minister making a direct appeal to Russians today to not back their president's moves. But we had Ursula von der Leyen speak saying that the EU is united over this, but it doesn't seem to me they have been over the past weeks. And we certainly need continental nations to now step up and enforce sanctions, impose sanctions and do things, like you said, removing Russia from the SWIFT international transit system. But that's going to create a huge kickback for European economies. So what moves can actually be made?
No, I mean, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think that this is the next stage, that we have to be prepared to bear the brunt of what the effect of this is. So, for instance, I mean, we've seen oil hit $100 a barrel a day. That was this morning, and that's the first time since 2014. That means petrol prices are going to go up. It is quite likely, especially for European countries like Germany, Austria, and so on, who rely on Russian gas, that their gas prices are going to go up. So there will be a knock-on effect to all of us. The question, of course, is that if we're going to stand up to Putin, if we're going to support Ukraine, we have to accept the cost of that too.
Nigel, thank you ever so much. Well, let me know what you think if you're watching back at home. What are your views on Russia invading Ukraine? Is the West powerless in the face of Putin's aggression? Is it all a little bit too little, too late? Email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews. You are with GB News on TV and radio. After the break, what does the escalating conflict mean for us in the UK? We'll ask an expert about the risk of cyber attacks. But first, let's get a check on the weather forecast.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGivern. A cold and windy day for all of us, with a mixture of rain, snow and hail showers in many spots, but also some sunny spells away from the showers. The best of the blue skies will be across southern and eastern parts of the UK. The snow showers coming in from the northwest will continue. Could even see a few flakes of snow in the south mixed in with the rain and sleet showers. And there'll be some more persistent rain, sleet and hill snow for Northern Ireland, Scotland and Northern England later. Most of the snow settling, though, over hills, and temperatures down compared to recent days, 4 to 6 in the north, 7 to 9 in the south. And feeling cold in the wind, which will be particularly strong during the afternoon and evening for Northern Ireland, parts of western Scotland, and then overnight down the North Sea coast. Wind gusts of 50, 60 miles an hour. Later, overnight, the wind and the showers die away. And there'll be some icy patches to wake up to across Scotland, parts of northern England. But Friday is looking like a vastly improved day. A ridge of high pressure builds in from the south, and that tends to kill off the showers. It tends to reduce the wind speeds, and as a result, there'll be plenty more sunshine to wake up to, with most places seeing a fine day. Still a few showers trickling into northwest England, the Midlands, perhaps East Anglia and the southwest, but these will be few and far between, particularly by the afternoon. And by the afternoon, most places are dry with long spells of sunshine, just some cloud bubbling up there in the south and some thicker cloud arriving into the northwest with some rain for western Scotland later. 11 Celsius in the south, 8s and 9s further north, so feeling more pleasant compared to today. The rain across Scotland pushes east overnight into the start of the weekend, and the winds then pick up in the northwest for the weekend, with some further spells of rain in the far northwest. But for most, Saturday's looking like a fine day with plenty of sunshine.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. You're with GB News on TV and on digital radio. Now, cyber attacks have been waged against Ukraine in recent days and weeks. Last month, the websites of several government ministries were defaced with the message, "Be afraid and expect the worst," reflecting the new hybrid warfare central to modern combat. Insidious new malware able to wipe computer memories, collapsing critical infrastructure systems, and leaving a country at risk of having power turned off and military systems destabilised. The best part of defence is offence, Defence Secretary Ben Wallace told the Commons yesterday, as he says the UK is prepared to launch cyber attacks against Russia if our own systems are threatened. Well, joining me now on the show is former senior military intelligence officer Philip Ingram. Philip, we've spoken repeatedly on this show about the threat of modern warfare and cyber attacks. How do you read the way that Russia's going to play this?
Well, I actually found it quite interesting that Russia didn't carry out major cyber attacks that have leaked out to the rest of the world before they started this invasion. And that shows that Russia doesn't quite trust its own cyber capability. If we think back to the NotPetya attacks in 2017, it actually escaped into the wild. It was targeted against Ukrainian businesses through a bit of accounting software, and then it leaked into the wild, and that had massive impacts on the NHS, for example, and it actually hit a lot of Russian government computers as well. So they know that if they got that wrong again, it would escalate their current actions outside Ukraine's borders and potentially stimulate an even bigger response from the international community.
Yeah, I have read unconfirmed reports online that there have even been traces of Chinese fingerprints on attacks against Ukraine in recent months. Have you heard anything similar to that?
Yes, there's fingerprints from all over the place. You know, the main operators in the cyber arena are Russia and China are the two biggest. They've got North Korea, but I see North Korea more as the plausibly deniable naughty little boy that either Russia and China can use every now and again. But North Korea have got their own desire to go out and steal cryptocurrencies if they can to try and fund what's going on. And then you've got sort of lesser players like Iran that come and play. But the cyber arena is somewhere where we're pretty sophisticated, and there are no international rules of warfare around cyber. So Russia could get really hurt very, very badly if they stimulated a cyber response from us directly targeted at them. And therefore, I think Putin has made the decision not to have this as a forward part of his operation. But I think the operation has shown going the other way, where we've seen British defence in recent defence reviews try to say that everything is moving more into the cyber environment and the high-tech environment. I think what Putin is showing is, actually, no, it's tanks and boots on the ground that you really need.
I mean, we do often relate, it's interesting you say that, because we do often relate Russia to cyber attacks, Russian bots, so on and so forth. And Defence Secretary Ben Wallace saying that the UK does have the capability to strike Russia hard when it comes to cyber attacks. But what would be the risk of reprisals back here in the UK?
Well, the National Cyber Security Centre has just put out with other international partners a warning about a very nasty potential cyber attack. That's just gone out today. The National Cyber Security Centre are on top of and have been advising our critical national infrastructure and advising businesses for weeks and months now. So the UK is as well prepared as it can be. And we have got a very good offensive capability, and Putin knows that. So he won't want to stimulate us doing that and undermining what it is that he's trying to achieve in Ukraine, when he can achieve it through his conventional military forces.
Philip, it's always fantastic talking to you on this. You really are brilliant, a leading expert in this field. Philip Ingram, who's a former senior military intelligence officer. Well, let's speak again to Nigel Nelson, political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People. I mean, Philip Ingram there saying, yes, China is a big operator in this arena. I mean, given what he's just said and actually playing down Russia's capability when it comes to cyber attacks, and indeed what we've seen so far is sort of the traditional boots on the ground approach. How important was it, therefore, that the UK government kicked Huawei out of our own system?
Well, I think it was very important, but obviously there'll be retaliation because of that. I mean, China's attitude is actually quite ambivalent on something like this. They're not very happy about the idea of Putin supporting separatists in eastern Ukraine because they have the problem with their own separatists. So China doesn't like the idea of Hong Kong, for instance, going it alone. They keep Tibet well under control. So they wouldn't be in favor of what Putin did in eastern Ukraine. But certainly China wants to undermine the West, it wants to undermine NATO, and cyber attacks would be part of that. Of course, we can always fight back. I mean, we now have the cyber capability to launch a cyber war, and we could have our cyber warriors out there giving President Putin a hard time.
The risk, of course, is countries such as China are watching what Russia are doing and watching the West's response, because if China had its own ambitions for aggression towards Taiwan, to go back in and reclaim that, surely it's critical now that we do put on a united front in the West and we do show these other malevolent countries that we will not stand for attacks against democratic sovereign states.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. And so when we hear the package of sanctions later on today, let's find out just how serious they are. I mean, quite clearly, what we can't do is act militarily. I think David Davis's idea of flying over Ukrainian airspace is completely nuts, because all you'd need is for them to come into conflict with a Russian aircraft and suddenly the whole thing would escalate. But what we do have is we have our red line, and our red line is that Russians must not cross into a NATO country. So provided we keep everything within Ukraine and help Ukrainian resistance as much as possible, that way we can stop wider escalation. But if President Putin is looking at Estonia, say, Latvia, Lithuania, then we're in for a much bigger conflict.
Yeah, we are indeed, Nigel. Thank you ever so much. You are with GB News on TV and DAB radio. Coming up, we'll speak to an expat Brit in Kiev about the impact of the Russian attacks on Ukraine. But first, let's check on the news headlines.
It's 2:31. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister has announced the UK and its allies will respond to Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine with a massive package of sanctions. The Ukrainian Foreign Minister says Putin's immersing Europe in the darkest time since 1939. Boris Johnson's pledged to do everything he can to keep Britain safe, adding that Moscow's actions must end in failure. He says the UK won't turn a blind eye to the attacks.
We and the world cannot allow that freedom just to be snuffed out. We cannot and will not just look away. Today, in concert with our allies, we will agree a massive package of economic sanctions designed in time to hobble the Russian economy. Our mission is clear: diplomatically, politically, economically, and eventually militarily. This hideous and barbaric venture of Vladimir Putin must end in failure.
In other news, all remaining COVID restrictions in England end today. That means people who test positive with the virus will no longer legally have to isolate. It follows the Prime Minister's Living with COVID strategy, which also includes scrapping universal testing from April. Students starting university in September will now have to start paying back their loans as soon as they earn more than £25,000 a year. That's part of the government's response into the Auger Review, which looks into funding within higher education. The current threshold for repaying student loans is just over £27,000. TV online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. We'll have a full update with the latest on Ukraine at the top of the hour. It's back to We Need to Talk About with Alex in just a moment.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs, sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
You're with GB News on TV, online and digital radio. Well, let's get the latest on the situation in Ukraine following the Russian invasion. Our Home and Security editor, Mark White, is joining me. Mark, what can you tell us?
Well, those missile strikes, it seems, also strikes from...
OK, Mark, I'm just going to stop you there. We're having troubles with your audio. So, Nigel, picking up on what we were talking about before the break, I spotted a news story on the GB News website, in fact, that today China is now flying its aeroplanes over airspace in Taiwan, which makes me wonder how closely our enemies might be allied.
Well, as I say, the response has been a bit ambivalent, and that is actually a risk. There's always been the theory that China might use this as an excuse to go after Taiwan, which has been a long-term goal. But again, I'm not sure that China would want to get involved in that, in the sense of joining Moscow quite so much. China also does a lot of trade with the West. And if we're talking about major sanctions against Russia, China isn't going to want to align themselves with Moscow and then risk losing that Western trade. But as I say, we are getting mixed message out of China. And when you hear about overflights like that, we have a cause for concern.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel. Mark, we're going to try and rejoin you. What is the latest that you're hearing about that escalating situation following the Russian invasion of Ukraine?
Yeah, apologies for that, Alex. In terms of what's happening on the ground in Ukraine at the moment, the air raid sirens have sounded within the last hour in the capital, Kiev. People going down to air raid shelters in parts of the capital as well. There is real concern. A second wave, we're told, of missiles and strikes from Russian aircraft took place about an hour or two ago. An airport, a military airport, just on the outskirts of Kiev was targeted. There's some very dramatic footage that has been circulating showing what appears to be Russian attack helicopters firing off flares as they go into that military airport. Now, the Ukrainian military claims that they have actually shot down 3 Russian attack helicopters in that particular incident. There are other reports of missile strikes and shelling at various other locations to the north, to the east and to the southeast of Ukraine. The port city of Mariupol in southeastern Ukraine has, according again to Ukrainian officials, come under attack. Shells have landed in a residential area. There are no reports coming through as yet of casualties as a result of that shelling. But you can understand, Alex, people are very, very concerned throughout Ukraine at what is unfolding. And already thousands are heading for the borders of neighbouring countries. Poland, for instance, has set up 6 reception centres on its border with Ukraine. It says it's willing to receive as many refugees as need to come across that border. They will be dealt with initially in those reception centres, given whatever medical attention they need, and then they will look to trying to settle them down somewhere for as long as this dispute lasts.
Mark, thank you. Well, many of you viewers have probably seen the pictures of snakes of cars leading out of Kiev on their main trunk roads, causing logjams as thousands attempt to flee the beleaguered city. And the US has predicted that war could lead to an exodus of as many as 5 million refugees from Ukraine. Well, one person who has been struggling to get his family back to the UK is British expat Ken Stewart, who joins me now. Ken, how are you doing and what is the latest?
Hi, good to see you again. Well, the latest is what you've been seeing unfold on your screens today, and I've been watching the same thing happen. But of course, I'm a bit nearer, so I can actually hear it as well with my own ears. And I've been hearing jets, military jets flying over. It's overcast today, so it's hard to know whose side they're on. But I suspect they're Russian because I've been hearing these jets fly over, followed by explosions in the distance. I've heard some heavy weapons being fired as well. I believe they attacked an airport quite near where I live. It's Gostomel Airport, which is the home to Antonov, the aircraft manufacturer. They have the largest aircraft in the world that they sort of parade around. And that airport had an air assault 2 or 3 hours ago. And the Ukrainians are claiming that they shot down some of at least 4 or 5 of the helicopters that attacked. Whether this is true or not remains to be seen, but that's what I've heard. So it's pretty scary on the ground here because it's the uncertainty of what's going to happen next. Where are they going to go? Are they going to come to my village? Should we leave or should we stay here? I mean, I've got to think about the children. And that's our main focus, is keeping the kids safe, you know.
Ken, the last time that we caught up, you have a newborn baby and you were waiting for the certification for your newborn child to be organised so you could contact the British Embassy and organise for you to get out. What is your personal progress like and how worried are you for your own safety?
Yeah, well, I'll take the last question first. I'm not worried about my own safety. I might be stupid, but I am really concerned about my family's safety. And that's the number one thing. We had some good progress when it comes to the birth certificate for Douglas. He was born just over 2 weeks ago, as I said before, and he didn't have a birth certificate. And it takes time in this country. We managed to speed up the progress of that last week, and we picked up a birth certificate, and we actually secured British citizenship for both children. And 2 days ago, I picked up emergency travel documents for them. So they both now have the right to enter the UK. And that's great. However, my wife doesn't have a visa for the UK. She's a Ukrainian citizen. And we've been having meeting a lot of red tape and problem after problem trying to get a visa for her. We've had some help, of course, from the UK, and it all comes down to biometrics. They say that she needs to go to a biometric center in Kiev and get her biometrics done, and then they can process the visa. But there's absolutely no way around that, despite the situation we're in. Now, the problem with that is she had just had a cesarean section, and she's in no condition to stand in lines in some passport office that we don't even know will be open. So, what we're thinking is we're going to stay here for now, and possibly if the war really comes to our village and we need to get out, then we will head west. And ultimately, we could end up in Poland with all these other people you've just been talking about. And hopefully we can get a visa sorted out there for my wife and ultimately go to the United Kingdom. Yeah, that's where we are.
Ken, our thoughts are with you, and we really, really hope that you do get yourself to safety. Do stay in touch and let us know how you get on. And thank you so much for joining our programme today and giving us your personal account.
Welcome.
Now, Russia is not acting alone. As world leaders condemn the actions of Vladimir Putin, others watch on in deafening silence, having aided and abetted his strategies to insulate the Russian economy to absorb any future sanctions. But one country is standing shoulder to shoulder with the Kremlin. First, there was a staged migrant crisis along the borders of Poland, designed to precipitate a full-blown crisis. Now, Belarus says it's ready to send in troops alongside Putin's forces stationed in the country for some months now, while allowing cruise missiles to be launched from their land. We're joined now by Belarusian journalist Hanna Lyubakova. Hanna, what's the reaction in Belarus to the latest developments, and what's in this for Belarus?
Well, people are really scared because nobody, the majority of the population does not want our country to participate in an armed conflict together with Russia to attack Ukraine. So people are against the regime and are against this war, but it's really hard for people to went out to the streets and protest because the level of repressions is incredible. The elites in the country are also against this attack, and we have multiple surveys confirming this. But we see that basically Lukashenko is now considering our country as a hostage, and he basically decides on behalf of the people. Today and in the past weeks, we have seen a lot of military trucks, tanks, Russian tanks, basically driving across the country. And today we have seen them crossing the border with Ukraine, attacking Ukraine from the territory of Belarus, which is, again, a new development because since our independence in the 90s, Belarus never participated in a war against another country. So I would say that this is shocking. People are ashamed, and people don't want our country to be an aggressor.
But how important is now the strategic relationship between Russia and Belarus? There was, of course, an uprising against the Belarusian president, who many regard as a dictator. But I think his support of the Kremlin means that a significant amount of money gets poured into Belarus. How difficult will it be for the people of Belarus to stand up against the Kremlin's plans?
So we should remember that Lukashenko lost legitimacy in 2020 when he lost the presidential election, and since then people have been protesting against him. Now again, it's not possible because of repressions, but it does not mean that the moods in the society have changed. No, people are still against the regime. Lukashenko is staying in power only because Russia support him. But now we see that because of this support, Belarus, the territory of my country, is being used for an aggression on Ukraine. And it also means that we are losing our sovereignty and independence. So not only Ukraine is under threat, but also Belarus is under threat. And there are conversations now about how to punish Putin for this, what consequences he should face. But we should also remember that Lukashenko must be punished for what he has been doing for months. This was a hybrid attack before. Now it's a real war, real attack. And there is a question whether Belarusian troops are going to participate in this attack. Lukashenko actually mentioned that it is possible in the future Belarusian troops can participate in this attack if Russia and Belarus would consider this necessary. So this should be prevented by further sanctions, by pressure, and Lukashenko must face consequences for his actions and his words.
Hanna, thank you ever so much. Hanna Lyubakova there, a Belarusian journalist, explaining how the ripples of this growing conflict extend far beyond the borders of both Russia and Ukraine. Well, Nigel, let's go back to Ken Stewart's story there. I mean, he's a Brit expat stuck in Kiev, can't get out. His wife's just had a new baby. We've heard that he's just about to get emergency travel documents for his children. But we've already heard promises from Germany, Poland, Slovakia, Finland and Latvia to take in refugees, but nothing yet from the UK. Is that something that we should be upfront about and stating now?
Yes, and I think that probably that will be the next stage. I mean, what Ken was talking about is that if he can't get to the UK directly because of his wife's visa problems, he should be able to get to Poland and be able to sort out the situation there. I mean, I can understand a lot of chaos now in Kiev. It must be very difficult to actually get any kind of paperwork for anywhere. So I can see that the next stage will be Britain saying, yes, I mean, we will take in refugees. We have sort of well-tried systems now working. So the Syrian settlement scheme, as an example, was a great success. The Afghanistan one took a bit of launching properly, but we're beginning to do that now. Obviously, a certain amount of preparation has to be sorted out. So you've got some housing at the other end, you've got aid packages for people coming in. But I'm sure that that would be the next stage. But obviously, Eastern European countries are much closer, and that would be the first port of call for the refugees.
Nigel, thank you. Well, let's bring it back home to the UK, as there's a protest against Russian aggression happening right now outside Downing Street. Our reporter, Rosie Wright, is there for us. Rosie, what is the mood on the ground? What sort of things are people saying?
A very simple, very clear message, Alex, here. Stop the war, help Ukraine. Hundreds of people, Ukrainians and their supporters, stood outside 10 Downing Street trying to petition the UK government to say, don't ignore us, we want help. To try and best explain, there's a sort of swell amongst this group. There's this sort of disbelief, this somber mode, this singing, and then there's this very visceral anger and just disbelief of what happened in the early hours of this morning. Trina is with me now. Thank you very much for talking to us. Just explain. I know you moved from Ukraine 5 years ago. You come to the UK. You can't really believe what's happened.
Yeah, it's really hard to believe what's happening, but today at 5 a.m., the Kiev time, Putin has started the unprovoked war against Ukraine. And that is why we are here, everyone. You know, there are many people from all over the world, not just Ukrainians, and they came here to support us, and they came here, you know, to show that we need sanctions. We need help from our allies to help to save Ukraine, to help to save democracy, because now is the Ukraine and later is the rest of the world. This war should be stopped. It's violent, it's a massacre, and the people are suffering for nothing, just for this sick idea of the one man who have this dream, you know, to turn time back and to resurrect the former USSR Union. But this is impossible. We are a different country. Ukraine has been an independent country for 31 years. Yes, we are neighbors. We understand both languages and we can talk both Ukrainian and Russian, but we have our own. We have Ukrainian language, we have Ukrainian identity, and we are entitled to live how we please.
And when you talk about that and the support you want from the West, earlier I spoke to someone else who said sanctions, they're just laughable. Do you think sanctions would impact on Putin?
I hope, because there is the only hope we have, allies and the rest of the world. You know, we need to show that the world stands together with Ukraine in this war.
And what does that look like? What would you want to see from the politicians at number 10?
Of course, we want Putin to be stopped. We want to switch the SWIFT off. We want to lock all his financial abilities at this point. And of course, we need to take the Russian troops back from Ukraine, because Russia invaded Ukraine. This is unprovoked war, and this has been going on for 8 years now. And the world only, you know, told us, oh, we are so concerned, and that's it. That is not enough. We need actions now. We need sanctions now. Boris Johnson, we hope for your help. We need your help. Please support Ukraine. Stand with Ukraine. Help to save democracy.
A very clear message, not only echoed by you, but by the other people who've come out here. Hundreds, actually, more people have been gathering over the course of the day. Many of the people I've been speaking to have just been in disbelief, scouring through social media, looking at posts, trying to get in contact with friends and family who've said, actually, we can't move, we're stuck in massive traffic jams. It's really difficult for us to even know what to do. Do we stay here? Do we try and seek shelter? We've been told to stay at home. The people here, the Ukrainians and those who support them, are saying, we want to be heard. And as you can hear there, sanctions now.
Rosie, thank you ever so much. Stand with Ukraine, they're chanting. Nigel, the big question is how? How can we do this?
We're just going to hope that the sanctions are strong enough. And on the basis that we really can't put troops in, And in fairness, I mean, the young lady there was not actually asking for that she seemed to be talking about really strong sanctions, and that's what I'd expect we'll be hearing later on today. We don't know at the moment simply because they do have to be coordinated. If this is going to work properly, it must be with America, Canada, the rest of the NATO countries, with the EU, to make sure you've got the strongest package available. I don't think it would save Ukraine. Sadly, that we are probably in for months of this, but it is the only way of bringing what is going on to an end, even if that takes some time.
Nigel, thank you ever so much. Well, there you are. Need a coordinated effort from world leaders when it comes to robust sanctions that might actually stop Putin in his tracks. We're waiting to learn what they might look like. Some big meetings coming up. The G7, NATO, the UN Security Council. We'll be bringing you all the latest information as those happen and letting you know what the world's plan will be now that Russia has invaded Ukraine. That's about it from me. Join me again for We Need to Talk About on GB News at the same time, same place, 2 o'clock tomorrow. Coming up next, it's The Briefing with Darren McCaffrey. But first, it's time for the weather.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGivern. A cold and windy day for all of us with a mixture of rain, snow and hail showers in many spots, but also some sunny spells away from the showers. The best of the blue skies will be across southern and eastern parts of the UK. The snow showers coming in from the northwest will continue. Could even see a few flakes of snow in the south mixed in with the rain and sleet showers. And there'll be some more persistent rain, sleet and hill snow for Northern Ireland, Scotland and Northern England later. Most of the snow settling, though, over hills, and temperatures down compared to recent days, 4 to 6 in the north, 7 to 9 in the south. And feeling cold in the wind, which will be particularly strong during the afternoon and evening for Northern Ireland, parts of Western Scotland, and then overnight down the North Sea coast, wind gusts of 50, 60 miles an hour. Later, overnight, the wind and the showers die away. And there'll be some icy patches to wake up to across Scotland, parts of northern England. But Friday is looking like a vastly improved day. A ridge of high pressure builds in from the south, and that tends to kill off the showers. It tends to reduce the wind speeds. And as a result, there'll be plenty more sunshine to wake up to, with most places seeing a fine day. Still a few showers trickling into northwest England, the Midlands, perhaps East Anglia and the southwest, but these will be few and far between, particularly by the afternoon. And by the afternoon, most places are dry with long spells of sunshine, just some cloud bubbling up there in the south and some thicker cloud arriving into the northwest with some rain for western Scotland later. 11 Celsius in the south, 8s and 9s further north, so feeling more pleasant compared to today. The rain across Scotland pushes east overnight into the start of the weekend, and the winds then pick up in the northwest for the weekend, with some further spells of rain in the far northwest. But for most, Saturday's looking like a fine day with plenty of sunshine.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A very good afternoon. Welcome to the Briefing PM, your fix of all the latest political news, debate and analysis here on GB.